Coach, a lot of players are just communicating in a way that they really feel good about this team, what you're doing. And when I think back to your first arrival here and the plan that you had in the vision, are you pleased that you're right on schedule with where you want it to be?
I'm really happy with the group of guys that we have here, and like you said, just the communication, the energy. Um, the guys love being part of the locker room. They love being at practice. They really are doing a good job on the field with what we're asking them to do in terms of communicating verbally and non-verbally together. So it's a group that you go home at night and you're really excited to get back to work the next day and continue to make progress. But with all that being said, yeah, we got the right guys, but we got a lot of work to do. We need every single practice we're getting this spring, and we're going to need all the ones in training camp. But I like where we're at today. We just got to continue to build on that every single day we're in the building.
Thanks.
How much of a difference do you see in Tee Higgins this season?
I'm really excited about T. I think that you saw in the last couple games last year that the switch kind of flipped for him a little bit. You forget these guys didn't have – you don't forget. Everyone talks about it all the time, but they didn't have the offseason. T came in and had a little hamstring early in training camp last year. And so you're asked to go through a 16-game schedule as a rookie with no offseason, and you're not full go in training camp. That makes it tough. And I thought T battled through that and had a really good year, particularly at the end. I've seen T come back in outstanding shape. He's one of our most detailed receivers. He's got a really high football IQ. It all makes sense to him. He wants to be detailed. And so I'm really excited to see what's in store for him. We got a good receiving core, but I think T's been really impressive so far this offseason.
Like, you're obviously early in the process. And I know in a passing game, you want to go where the coverage dictates, but that also dictates guys winning one-on-one battles too, to get it there. How much, when you look at your group and you say, hey, we've got every guy can win one-on-one battles on a consistent basis?
Yeah. And the ball just is going to find the open guy or the guy with the best matchup, and so you feel good about the guys that you can roll in the field. You feel good about the depth of those positions as well. We got guys behind the starters that can come in and really challenge people. And, you just look at the way the targets were distributed last year. I think our starting three receivers was like 110, 106, 104. And that's about how you want it, equally distributed. And then it's up to them to make the most of those opportunities. But it's a group that's a really strong group for us right now.
Coach, you got a few guys, Joe Burrow being one, CJ Uzama, look like they've been working hard in the weight room. Michael Jordan has redone his body. In some instances, was it just an individual decision by the player? Or was it incorporated with the team's input? What's been the basically the case? I guess all of them are individual, but mostly are the guys doing it on their own, or is it organization driven?
Well, for the most part, they're on their own, until April comes around. But I think those guys have a really good rapport and relationship with Joey Bose, and Todd and Garrett, our strength staff. Their position coaches. Those are conversations you have, in terms of weight goals and body goals when you come back for training camp as well. So I just think overall the process is really clean with Joey and his staff, and the players have really bought into that. Some guys, some guys go away and they make that decision on their own and they come back and they're in great shape. But for the most part, there's really good conversations there.
Zac, how would you describe Joe Mixon's development these first 2 years you've had him, and what's the big next step for him in this third year with you?
Well, it's, next step. I thought Joe was on pace for a really good year last year through the first 4.5 games. I think it was. Indy, I think, was the 5th game, if I'm not mistaken. He was doing a great job catching the ball out of the backfield. He was having a lot of production for us. And so I was excited to see him, in that 16-game season, and it was cut short, obviously. So Joe does all the things we ask him to do. He's catching the ball really well. He's getting detailed. He knows who to block in the protections and how to do it. He's a really strong runner. He really buys into the schemes, that Frank employs and that we're asking him to do, up front. So, again, just really excited to have him back fully healthy and what he can do this year.
I asked Callahan about this. I was like back, maybe I think it was draft, like on some spare thing on day 3 of the draft. But, when you look at the numbers, he hasn't really been on the field on third downs. It's been Gio's role. for him to be on the field to be a 3-down back, what is he going to be able to do to kind of make sure that, he's on the field for those third downs?
Yeah, it's something we want. Having Joe Mixon on the field makes us better. At the same time, you don't need him on the field for 75 snaps a game. And so sometimes you got to pick and choose where you can get those guys the break. And sometimes, Samaje Perine's a really smart, detailed back as well. So it's not that, okay, he's not on the field, what's he doing wrong? We want him to be full go for the length of the season. And so you don't need to give him every snap. And so you got to delegate in a sense and make sure there's roles for other guys where everybody's fresh and giving you the best effort. So so it's not always necessarily, okay, what did he do wrong? He's not on the field for 3 downs. It's we feel like we got other weapons to utilize that can do a great job for us.
Coach, I think today was the first time, I think you went long with receivers, that you did some deep routes with the receivers, if I'm not mistaken. How did you think that went? How did you think Joe looked doing it? Was it?
Part of it is we've been here 2 weeks now going into this week, and you don't necessarily know what shape all these guys are in when they show up. And so the first week, you don't want them just, hauling and running, 45-yard go routes all the time and having to strain. So that was part of our process. Was week 3, let's start pushing the ball down the field a little bit more. Same goes with Joe. I didn't know coming into it where Burrow was going to be at. And so now we've gotten a feel for everybody. And so this week we wanted to get some of the timing and the landmarks down a little bit better. That's one of the things we weren't good enough at last year during the season. And so, we didn't connect on them all today, but you get a chance now to go back and watch the tape, talk about the landmarks, talk about the tempo, talk about the timing, and make those corrections for later this week, next week, and then it's good tape to teach off of when you come back from training camp.
See, what did you think of his? I'm sorry, I just want to ask, what did you think of his, his ability to get something on the ball, his mechanics? I mean, were you able to, is he all right throwing that deep thing? Is he what you thought it would be?
Yeah, I'm excited to watch him. I think he can throw it probably 90 yards right now, and
yeah.
Just kidding. I don't know how far he can throw it, but it's exciting. He looks really good, and I know a lot's been made about the arm strength and the velocity and all that, but he's throwing the ball on time where it needs to go, and that's what I'm pleased about.
Zach, how much of Michael Jordan's development is about the mental aspect of the game for him, and just because the skills that I know you guys have felt like the raw physical skills with him have always been there? Is there just a mental aspect of putting it all together for him that's the next step?
I'm very positive about Michael Jordan, and it hasn't been perfect, on offense for any of us. And so again, going into year 3, it's a big year for Mike. I think he's taken the right approach. He's done a great job of listening to what Frank's asked him to do. I'm excited to see what he can do physically when we put the pads on and be consistent with the technique. And so last year you watch him, he had some tough matchups, and that's what this league's about. There's some really good D tackles, and it seemed like he found some really good ones about 5 weeks in a row at one point, but that's life in the NFL, and you got to be consistent and you got to give your best. And so I'm excited to see what Mike looks like as we finish up this offseason, get into training camp, and expect good things from him.
You mentioned Frank Pollock, the O-line coach, and you're halfway into OTAs / mini camp type things. And now you've been on the field with them, for a little bit and seeing what he's teaching, the techniques and everything that goes along with that. What are your impressions at this point in time?
He's done a great job. I think he's a really good communicator, brings great energy to the table, and I've enjoyed working with him. I know the players enjoy working with him. So we're excited to have Frank.
The young group of linebackers, how do you view that group, and how do you get the most out of them this year?
Yep. So that's a really good question, Charlie. I think training camp's going to be huge for those guys because that's a group that I'm really happy we have this offseason, because we're not going full speed necessarily in 11-on-11. We're doing a lot of walkthrough work. So part of my job is on offense as I script, trying to make the defense communicate, to help accelerate those guys' learning process. And so I've seen that, you get a chance to really see the communication process with them, get aligned, get their fits down. And then now you get that offseason work. So now training camp is going to be huge for all those second year guys in particular that you're mentioning, because, okay, we got this offseason work where we're going to do it a little bit slow motion. Now we got to show up and do it full speed with full pads on in games 1, 2, and 3 of training camp. And so that's a group that all eyes will be on to see their development. Been pleased with where they're at. Al Golden does an outstanding job with those guys. So it is a group that I'm excited about as we were when we took them. And you can add a lot of other guys to that mix too. There's a whole group of 7 of them there that is really exciting to watch. And so training camp will be big for that group.
2 more minutes.
Zach, you had Joe do some play action fakes before throwing the ball today. And I know early in the OTAs, you were avoiding it, having anybody back there in the backfield with him. Is that just kind of a natural next step? Okay, we can do this safely with him.
It's hard not to. I tell the backs to cheat out more as if they were an empty, but you're in the backfield a little bit. So fortunately, we got some mature backs that understand what I'm asking them to do, and they're not going to change that long term. But it's being able to ask Joe. He's comfortable. We check with the trainers before we do anything, and he's getting some good work done.
Zach, going back to Mixon just a little bit more, when you look at what in your mind, what is an ideal season in terms of touches, distribution, kind of participation for Mixon? What does that look like? Because we've never really seen it really click on a full level. So what should we be looking for in year 3 for him?
We want the production in the run and the pass game. And so I don't just put a set number of carries and yards in there because each game is going to be different. And so you make a statement like that and all of a sudden, we're throwing the ball for X amount of yards and having great production. And then the next set of 4 games, we're doing a great job running the ball. And so I just think that we've got weapons that we got to find ways to utilize to where the defense has really got to defend every blade of the grass and they don't know whether we're coming or going. And so we feel like we got some really good pieces to utilize and have a lot of fun with it. Those guys are really working hard. They bought in. They're excited for one another. Joe Mixon's just excited about Jamar and T and TB as he is for himself. And so it's a fun group to work with.
One last question.
When you're calling plays, in practice and you look at the secondary, in your eyes, how big is the improvement on the back end of the defense?
Fun to watch. Really veteran players over there. You just look at that group that rolls out there first with Cheeto, Trey, and Mike. Not even talking about the safeties. You guys know them. They've been here a while, but those guys have played a lot of football, and it's fun to watch them interact and match up with some of the concepts that we employ. So it is. I'm calling a play on offense. I'm making sure our guys are aligned, and on the snap you can see where they go. But my eyes are really on the secondary, watching those guys match and the details that they're using. And it's a fun group. They've done a good job so far.